It's your friendly math tutor, Miss C here, and today we are solving tangent equations. Before we get started on that, I want to remind us something about tangent. So tangent has the identity that tangent of x is equal to sine of x divided by cosine of x. What that means for the graph of tangent, right, if I were to just sketch it here, is that every 180 degrees, tangent of x passes through 0, has an x-intercept of 0. So the graph kind of looks like this, okay? And the graph of tangent contains asymptotes. So if we were to draw those in and let them be these blue lines, these are the values for which the graph of tangent never touches. And the reason that is because since sine of x divided by cosine of x has zeros on its graph. So whenever cosine of x takes on a value of 0, you have an asymptote on the graph of tangent. So all this to say that you're going to notice tangent of x can be equal to some really large and some really small numbers because the graphs go to infinity. There's also points on the graph that don't exist or that are undefined because of the asymptote. So this is just a little information about the graph of tangent to get our minds in the right mindset before we solve. And now we're solving within the domain of 0 to 360 degrees. We start solving the same way we solve sine and cosine graphs or equations, and that is by taking the arc sine or the arc tangent or the inverse tangent of both sides. Okay, so when I take the inverse tangent of x, I'm left with x. And then to find the inverse tangent of positive 57, all I'm going to do is pop that into my calculator. When I do that, I get 88.99 degrees. That solution falls within our domain, so that works. But tangent repeats every 180 degrees, so I need to see if there's another value, which I know there's going to be because when I add 180 degrees here, I know I'm still within my domain of 0 to 360. When I do that, I get a value of 268.99 degrees. So this is another solution. If I add 180 again, I'm out of my domain. And if I go back to 188.99 and subtract 180 degrees, I'm out of my domain. So these are our two solutions. I'm going to move my next equation over. So this equation is a little more, it's a little different. So basically we're squaring tangent. And so what that means is all of these values down here, I did a really bad job drawing this part of the graph, they all turn positive. So if I were to draw this, the graph of tangent would become something like this. Okay. So what that means is we're going to have double the values anytime we have the squared graph of tangent. So we approach this graph the same way that we would approach the squared graph of sine or cosine. We have to get rid of the square before we can do anything else, order of operations. So I'm going to go ahead and take the square root of both sides. And this is where we can make a mistake. So when I take the square root of tangent squared of x, I get tangent of x. When I take the square root of 225, I get 15, but I don't just get 15, I get positive or negative 15. So I'm going to go ahead and separate my two equations like this, because we have to solve for both. Okay, so I'm going to take the inverse tangent of both sides. I'm going to do it like this to save some writing. When I do that, I get x equals, and I'm putting the inverse tangent of 15 in my calculator, and I get 86.19 degrees. So that is one solution. I am going to add 180 degrees to that to get my second solution. That gives me 266.19 degrees. Now, what you're going to notice about this graph is that if you look, I'm just going to pick a random point. I've got two values when tangent is squared that are really, really close together. So that's what I can expect when I take the arctangent of this side, is to get two values that are in close proximity to the two values that I already have. So I'm taking the arctangent of both sides. When I do that, I get negative 86.19. Okay. And then I'm going to add 180 degrees here. And to that, I'm going to get 93.18 degrees. So that does fit, right? 86.19 and 93.81 are pretty close. I'm going to add 180 degrees again to get the second value within our domain, which is 273.81 degrees. All right. So that is how you find values in equations involving tangent and tangent squared. Make sure to subscribe for more math videos. Till next time, remember, you've got this. And one other thing, please make sure you check your answers by substituting your x value into the original equation. All right, everyone, till next time, you got this.